Corruption. This is a word that is known all around the world, and in all cases, it's viewed in a negative way. Corruption is something that exists all across the earth, even in some of the most developed nations of the world. Corruption exists because of one and one thing only human greed. While it may seem like corruption is impossible to cure, that isn't wholly true. There are things we can do that would make corruption basically non existent. Let's see if you agree with us by the end of the video. Hello, and welcome to an episode of Not in a Book. The first thing we can do to curb corruption is stop the cash flow. Make all government and private transactions digital. This way, the government can monitor where the cash is going, and officials cannot take bribes of any sort because they'll be caught. This helps in other ways too. For example, taking away the printing costs of actually printing physical money. Obviously, it would take years, maybe even decades, to completely stop the cash flow of a nation. But some countries have almost succeeded. For example, Sweden. There are only 32 ATMs per 100,000 people, and 98% of people in Sweden have a debit or credit card. This is an extremely high rate, and it isn't no coincidence that Sweden's corruption rate is one of the lowest in the world. It ranked number 4 in the Transparency Corruption Perception Index, higher than countries like the US, who ranked around number 27. This makes this means that making everything digital has helped out, as you can see in Sweden. Recently, countries like France and South Korea have been trying to copy what Sweden has done, and are being pretty successful at it. In addition, not only would a cashless society curb corruption, it would put a halt to other criminal activities as well. Some examples include tax evasion, money laundering, and funding illegal activity, like corruption. This leads us nicely into our next reason, banning cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies have the power to change the world. Why? Because suddenly you can evade all taxes, all government regulations, and also fund corruption. Everything we said in our first reason would go down the drain if cryptocurrencies weren't banned along with cash. Since cryptocurrencies are completely anonymous, the government or anybody else can't track who you're sending money to and who you're receiving money from. In other words, it's the best currency for criminals. With cryptocurrencies also being high value, it's a win-win for the criminals and corruption and a complete loss for the government and fight against corruption. You may say that cryptocurrencies are high risk too, but I don't think criminals care much about risk. Some countries haven't yet legalized cryptocurrencies, like India. Some have made them official currencies, like El Salvador and the Central African Republic, which is one of the reasons these two countries have a very high corruption rate. The goal is to limit corruption in as many ways as we can. If we can cut off the ways you can actually fund corruption obviously will simply disappear. While many may feel like cryptocurrency should stay, they can while still being banned. How? The government can make their own cryptocurrency like India is planning to do. If we're going to stop corruption, cryptocurrencies have to be banned for anything to be effective. While some countries are good with checks and balances, most only focus on high-level positions. Corruption is most at the low levels of governments, e.g. civil servants. One civil servant has a tremendous amount of power when you think about it. For example, a customs agent can let in terrorists into the country. To solve this, a power limitation could be done. When I say power limitation, I mean making all actions taken by a civil servant be approved by another civil servant, assigned at random. This would make two barriers that people will have to corrupt. The civil servant who approves the other civil servant is assigned at random, making it hard for the bribers to find out who they need to give money to. Sometimes people tend to forget that low-level employees exist because they're actually the most important. They're the ones that make things happen. For example, a CEO might say that they'll build a new technology, but the person who would actually build it would be a low-level mechanic or engineer. Let's take a look. Not only does this make corruption harder to do, but it gives low-level civil servants a feeling of power, which theoretically should make them more inclined to not be corrupt. Let's take a look at the statistics before continuing to the fourth and final way to curb corruption. According to PewResearch.org, a median of 83% of people across 34 emerging and developing economies say crime is a very big problem in their country, and 76% say the same about corrupt political leaders. They also say the importance of bribery looms larger in the Middle East, where 71% say corruption is a very big problem. A median of 30% in the region say giving bribes is important for life advancement. This includes 43% in Jordan and 36% in Tunisia. And in Asia, a median of 23% say this, including 38% in China. Fewer in Africa, at 15%, and Latin America, at 10%, agree. Another poll from pewresearch.org gives a hint to how important civil servants are in the fight against corruption. They say civil servants, which go hand in hand with national leadership, are generally seen as positive. Median of 54% seem them as good influence versus 39% bad influence. But they get lower marks in Latin America. The lowest ratings for civil servant come from people in Ukraine, Mexico, Venezuela, Poland, and Argentina. Another important statistic that I came across during my research is that last year in 2021, lobbyists gave $3,077,000,000 to politicians. This is truly mind-blowing. The last thing we can do to curb corruption is to remove humans from the system. If everything is a computer, nothing can be corrupted. The only risk is hackers, which could easily be prevented with cybersecurity teams and software. In every system, humans are the weakest link in the chain. If you remove humans from the government, suddenly there's no bribing, no corruption. Because who will you corrupt? Of course, this is a far-fetched idea, but it could be possible in the coming decades, maybe even years. Corruption is something that has been plaguing the world for decades. In a few cases, centuries. There are 4 ways to solve this problem, which are remove cash flow, ban cryptocurrencies, limit power, and identify the importance of low-level civil servants, and remove humans from the system. I hope you enjoyed this episode of NotInABook. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, and comment, and click the bell notification. With that, see you next time.